everyone, my name is Linsey Jorgenson, and I wanted to share with you today the story of how Streethearts started. So I am sitting actually in the place where our original kids were sleeping and living. How I met them was I would run on the boulevard in town after work just to kind of release stress, and I found 5 kids sitting along the side of the road, and they would always ask me for $1. And I thought, sure, we could give them $1, but how does that really make an impact long term? And so, I would run by, reflect on that, and then the kids would start to run with me. Barefoot on the ground, but they would just run alongside, and it was kind of interesting. At the time, I couldn't really communicate, but the one common language, right, is sports. So while we couldn't really communicate, we just kind of formed this bond. And then when they would see me jogging, they would start jogging with me. And one day I talked with them with the translator here and just simply asked them, would you like to do a running club? And here's how we're going to do it. Every time you meet with me and run, you earn a sticker. And after so many stickers, you can then buy things from me rather than me giving you $1. And so the kids were all excited about this idea, and I started to ask them what their names were. This really broke my heart. Some of the kids did not know their names, and most of the kids had no idea how old they were or when they were born. So at that moment, I just thought, okay, identity is so critical for kids. So I said to them, that's not a problem. We will figure that out. And I went and bought file folders. And for the kids that didn't have a name, we gave them a name. And we certainly gave the kids their birthdays and their ages. And so that's how I began to really start the bonding process with the original group of kids. The name Mama, or here Mame, was born. And I remember being at a hotel, really nice hotel, in a meeting, and I heard the kids calling me, with their Mommy. And so I left the meeting and walked outside, and they had put their little money together and got me popcorn. And that was just so touching to me, and a really good point at which I was starting to finally earn their trust. And I would come here, actually where I'm standing, where they would sleep, and we would sit and play Duck Duck Goose, and simply just hang and share each other's time. And through that, I started really learning what these kids were struggling with. Everything from sexual exploitation and abuse, extreme abandonment. I started to be able to go into the ghettos and get to really learn how they're living and kind of what the problems they're dealing with on a day-to-day. And I knew there was no possible way myself or any human would be able to take this project on. And so I thought, what? In addition to us all running together and then learning how to earn things, we need to do a church, a street church, just something simple on the street where the kids could come to. The slogan was no shoes, no problem. And then they would come and just get a message about love and who Jesus really is, and that they have a family and that they have a father that loves them. Not talking about judgment, but simply love and who Jesus is. I give them a peanut butter sandwich and some juice and just, pour out the message of the Great Commission and what Jesus calls us to do, right? Which is introduce Him and get them to understand that they really, really do have a Father, regardless of any of their abandonment. So it's about a year of me and the kids, running together, doing the street church, just really bonding and getting to know them and understanding what they're dealing with. People here had warned me, don't work with street kids. They're thieves. They're referred to as dogs of the street here. A lot of these kids have a mark on their hand. This mark explains to people, it lets people know that they're a part of this street life, and people would rather just ignore it and want nothing to do with it. It's too dangerous. These kids will never change, etc. And in learning about how much abuse they're experiencing and going through on top of dealing with medical problems, I mean, who wouldn't be rough around the edges? Imagine if your parents dropped you off on the side of the road, or heaven forbid, passed away, and you were just left alone at 5, 6, 7 years old. You can imagine the years of protectivity and barriers you would put up around your heart to protect yourself. It is dangerous. It's dangerous to be homeless anywhere in the world. And so the kids started to ask me if I would consider opening a homeless shelter. This is not something that had been done previously, and I started asking around town what people thought, and the common reaction was, don't waste your time, don't waste your money, they're going to steal everything. But I reached out to the States at a church in Haymarket, Virginia called Park Valley Church, Pastor Barry White, and shared my dream, and they believed in it enough to go ahead and sponsor the rent for a facility for 1 year. We had to give it a shot, right? And so I came back, we paid the rent, and we began, getting things together, putting beds in there. We're thinking something super basic, right? I mean, just a place where they can come and shower. Just having a place to shower alone would cut the medical problems by about 60 to 70%. But then also having a clean bed to sleep in, a safe place to stay where they're not having to worry about people attacking them. And then another layer to this is the voodoo culture and child sacrifice. So having a place where they could go, to me, was absolutely imperative. Even if one kid were to stay, it would be worth it. And I'm so thankful to Park Valley for believing in this dream, because God could do anything. He makes the impossible possible, and we just had to try. And so we did. We opened the shelter. I'll never forget the day. I went back to the hotel. I was so nervous about it. We had hired some security, and I'm like, please call me when you open the doors and let me know what happens. What if no one shows up? What if this doesn't work out? All those what ifs, right? And sure enough, they called me a few minutes later after opening, and they're like, we're full to the brim. Bring more toothbrushes. Bring more soap. Da-da-da-da. And that is how Streethearts began.